Everybody, it's Andrew Brown and welcome back to another video as we continue on with the custom provider. I'm eating my payday bar because I'm getting a little bit lightheaded here, but I want to keep pushing through this. Oh, the button changed. Now it says open and the GitPod logo, so that must have been a recent change. Things are always changing on me and that's totally fine. We're going to drop down, make our way over to our latest branch, which is not showing me the latest branch or tag. I'm going to refresh here. It was 47 that we're on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open that. And we'll continue on here with writing our custom Terraform provider. Okay. All right, so we'll continue on here and go ahead and open a few things here. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Terraform provider Terratowns. And we are going to go back into our main Go code, and of course it is not highlighting the code. So I'm going to go over and type in Golang. Sometimes it just takes a bit of time to load in. Sometimes you got to force its hand and get it to show you the validation. But I'm noticing that it hasn't installed. It doesn't look like it's installed the this here. So I'm just going to be patient and just wait a few minutes, okay? And I'll be back in just a moment because I think this is going to pop in. All right, so yeah, I just had to be a little bit patient. Now it is loaded in. So what we need to do is define the schema. Remember we defined the schema for our provider up here. Coming back to our diagram, our schema is what we want as our inputs here. So notice we have name, description, domain name, town, content version. Those are the things we need to define in the schema for our resource. And you know, we should probably call this like home resource, but I don't plan on making any other resource for this bootcamp. So we're just going to call it resource here, and we're going to assume that's the home. And what we're going to need to do is add it in here as schema. So go here and type in schema. We'll do a map, and we'll say string, and we'll say schema, curlies, and we'll do name as one. We need description as another one. I don't know if I spelt that right, so I'll just double check. Domain name, town, content version, and we'll go here. We'll go here and we'll get this one, and they're all required, so we'll just copy and paste it all the way down to the ground. I think the only one that is different is the content version, as we expect this to be an integer. So we'll type in int, and I don't think there's anything fancy here. We just need to put descriptions on all these. So we'll say description, and this one will be name of home. And the next one, description of home. And then domain name of home, e.g. CloudFront. Asterisk indicating that, you know, it accepts something that's in front of there. Maybe not super clear, but that's what it is. And then the town to which the home will belong to. And then this is just the content version. Okay, and I'm going to put commas on the end there. I just feel like it probably wants that, as I probably learned my lesson, but when we go back over to Ruby and JavaScript or anything else, I'm going to get confused. But that is just the nature of moving between multiple languages, right? So we now have our schema set up. I want to see if that will compile without errors. So we'll go back to our Terraform tab. I'll just bring this on over here. TF init. Failed to query available provider packages, could not retrieve the list of available versions for the provider, could not connect to local providers, Oh, because we need to build it before we init it. That's right. So we're going to do the bin build provider, and that's going to install that build. And we'll just give it a moment here. I'll be back here when it is done. We have ourselves a syntax error, so line 101. Yeah, probably commas on these would be nice. That's probably what it wants. Make sure they're all there. As you can see, I make a lot of syntax mistakes. I don't mind. I think it's okay. Like, you either build up, you get really used to using tools that tell you where errors are, or you get really good at finding your errors when the tools don't tell you exactly where they are. Probably wants a comma on this as well, I imagine, for some reason. There we go. Yeah, see, I'm not even sure. I just kind of getting the sense of what we need to do now. No errors there. That is good. But this is not going to do anything we do TF init, TF plan, because it still doesn't have anything. But we can start defining our block, though. So if we go over to our main TF, and we've specified a provider, we have this Terra House AWS. Well, that's the module we made from before. No, that's not what we want. We want a new resource here, and it's going to be called Terratown Home. And we said what's supposed to be there. It's supposed to have a name. It's supposed to have a description. It's supposed to have a content version. It's supposed to specify a town, right? What did I make my page about? Arcanum, right? So I want to put mine in the Gamer's Grotto. You choose where you want to put your page, but this is going local, by the way. Nowhere interesting. We'll say name, and I'll just say tips to playing Arcanum, or how to play Arcanum in 2023. And here we should really have a more verbose description of our project, because this is kind of like an update. It's not just description of the town. It's the last update you're showing to people here. So it'd be interesting to do a here doc. How to do a here doc for a string in Terraform. I know we did it earlier. I just don't remember. I think it uses the standard format, which is I always forget what it is. I know, like, it's that. There we go. Some languages will have like extra characters and things like that, so I kind of forget. So I'm going to say description here. Description. Why does that look wrong to me? And then I go here. Whoops. We'll say description. See, that doesn't look right. Oh, it's two of them. That's why. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it, but here's our here doc. And we kind of want to hug the wall, otherwise we'll get extra spacing. So this is where you'd write your personal updates. So you know, I want Arcanum is a game from, I don't know, when is it? Arcanum. I always think 2003. It's 2001. Is a game from 2001 that shipped with a lot of bugs. Modders have improved or have removed all the original issues, making this game really fun to play despite the old looking graphics. This is my guide that will show you how to play Arcanum without spoiling the plot. I could probably do a better description than that, but I'm going to stick with that for now. Name, description, town, content version. Is there something else we're missing? Domain name, domain name. And so this is where we want to get this from our other project. And so we probably have an output for this. If we go over to our outputs, like it has example code of what we want to pull. This would be CloudFront URL. So I'm going to go here and just copy this. And we're not going to launch that part right now. And we'll go here. And so this is what it's supposed to be, right? But right now we're just going to mock it. We're going to just pretend that we have a domain set up. We don't, but we're just going to pretend that we do. .NET, and we'll just say something like that, right? So that's what it would normally look like. And so we now have our schema set up. This, of course, is not going to do anything, or it shouldn't do anything, but maybe we'll find out what happens at this stage when we don't actually have any implementation. Maybe it will save this data. Should be interesting. So let's say tf init. Maybe we should build first, just in case. Clear. Tf init. It says missing name for resource. Line 40. Oh, right, we need to name it. So I'm just going to call mine Arcanum. You can name it whatever you want. It could just be home. Probably home is most appropriate, to be honest, because we only have one of them. But if you want to make multiples, then that would be a great opportunity. So we'll do Terraform init. Failed to query the available provider package. Could not retrieve the list of available versions for the provider. HashiCorp Terraform Towns provider registry. Registry Terraform IO does not have a provider there. It's supposed to look locally. So I'm not sure why that's complaining. I'm going to expand this a bit. Could not retrieve the list of available versions. All modules should specify their required providers so that the external consumer will get the correct providers when using a module. Okay, maybe I'm missing something here in the definition. I'm gonna go double check my code. Maybe we have to say what provider it's using. I don't know. But I'll check my old code. I thought that's all we needed. My other one, that's all it needs. So that looks fine there. If we go up here, this looks fine there. What the heck? Give me 2 seconds. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, so I mean, I looked into it and I thought, okay, well, this gets placed in this directory here, and this file is here, so I'm not 100% sure why that's happening. Here it says 100 unauthenticated. I don't know. So, not 100% sure what the issue is. It's not clear if there actually is an issue. I think what I will do is I'll continue on going through this implementation, and we'll see if this error still appears, because we really haven't filled out all the code. And like, we're not returning anything. These are just like empty resources. So maybe that has something to do with these being empty, right? And that's kind of a normal error that we kind of expect to see. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to do, is just implement this, and then maybe that error will go away. So that's what I'm hoping for. But it's not clear to me what the issue is. And you know, sometimes that's just it. You have to do enough of the work to find out what's wrong. Let's go take a look at our create action. So for our create action here, we want to reference the config. So we'll go colon equals and do m parentheses, and then reference or point to the config. So that's coming from this here. It's an empty interface. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but that's how it works. So whatever. We probably want to bring in these calls, and so maybe we'll do that now. So I'm going to go here and just say like resource house create start, and we'll put that at the top, and then almost near the bottom we'll do resource house create end. Okay, and then maybe just do that for each one, and we'll set ourselves up real good by doing that. Okay. Okay, so we'll have the read and the read, and we will do the update and the update. Okay. And so I know each of these are going to need a config, so we'll grab that for, I think all of them have it. Let me just double check in my code below. Yeah, they do. So we're going to need to grab this config for each one. Okay. Because our payload is going to need, you know, that endpoint URL, the other things that we defined in there. So that's going to be one thing that we're going to need. What else do we need? Just looking here. So we need to, just trying to decide the nicest way to write this. Just give me a moment here. Let me just take a moment here to think, okay? I'm just trying to figure out how we can break up this code so it goes quickly. All right, and you know, there probably would have been an easy way to refactor this if I was better at Go, but we're gonna have a bit of repetitive code, but I think that's okay. So what we need to do is we need to create or construct a request. So I'm just gonna say here, construct request. Okay, construct the HTTP request. And from there, what we're going to do is we'll have the request. It will also return an error if it needs to, and we'll equal assigns that. We'll say HTTP new request, and we'll say post, and then we'll have to set an endpoint here. So we'll say config endpoint. Now notice this is config, so we did this earlier where we said, if you remember, we had this block here that assigns our endpoint that we serve through here, right? And then it'll go through into this config, and then we're referencing it here down below to construct our request. So this is the start of it. Like this is either gonna be like localhost or wherever we decide that endpoint is pointing. And so I'm just gonna do a plus, and then we'll say u, and then we'll do a plus, and we want to do config user UUID. And then we want to do a plus, and we will say /homes. And so that is that endpoint. We want bytes here, and we'll say new buffer payload bytes. This has to do with what we want to pass in as our payload. We might come back to that in just a moment because we'll say replace me. I'm just going to say replace me. I'm purposely putting an error here so that we need to know that we have to come back to that in just a moment. But yeah, we will want to set up a new request, and if this results in an error, then we're going to want to return that error because it should not be null. So just say dialog from error. Okay, so hopefully that is starting to make sense. We're making a new request, and I'm just going to double check what we're doing for the other ones. And then we're always going to need to set headers, so we'll do that next. We'll say set headers, and this will be our req header.set, and we need one for authorization. So authorization, and we'll have our bearer token. So we'll say bearer space. It has to have a space. Make sure that space is there because that's how it works. Config token. And then we're going to set our header for the content type. Application JSON. And then we're going to set the accept for that. And so those are ones that we need to continually set for all of them, right? So this is going to look very similar for the other ones. So what I'm going to do is copy this, and we'll go down to, we were on what, create? Ooh, this is an update. We're not supposed to do it in this one. Well, so anyway, that's fine. We'll leave that one there, but I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go up to create. I thought that's where we were. This is where it'd be nice if this was refactored into separate files, but again, I'm not sophisticated at Go, so we get what we get. We don't get upset. We go up the top there, and we'll place that in here as such. Okay, so this URL is correct. It's supposed to be a post. Yep, that one makes sense. And we'll go to the next one here. Paste this in. And so for this one, this is supposed to be a get. We know this, it's in our diagram, right? We go to our diagram, it's right here. Like this is what we're doing, right? We're mapping these to what they're supposed to be. So coming back over to this one, we have homes, and here what we want is the user UUID. So, or not user UUID, it just be UUID. That's the home UUID. So I'm just looking for that. Yeah, it'll be plus home UUID. For some of these are just going to be nil. I'm actually going to just go back and write nil in here for now. Not for all of them. They'll get changed out, but we'll fix that in a moment. Anyway, so we have home UUID. That is not set yet. I think it's supposed to be, that's fine like that, I think, home UUID. And then for the update, it's going to be very similar. So we'll say / and then plus home UUID. And then for the delete, well, this is supposed to be a put, right? And then we have one more down below. So we'll paste this in here. We'll go here. Whoops. And this is going to be a delete. And it's supposed to have the home UUID, right? So we don't know what home UUID is just yet, but we'll figure that out in just a moment. Make that nil here. Okay. And I mean, we have this D, which is the context. It is, see where it says resource data? So that is, when we pull data, it'll be assigned into the resource data, and that's where it'll store the actual data, and that's where we can get the ID and all the other information. So for most of these, not this one, but for the ones down below, the other ones that need the ID, we can grab it from there. So that one's going to be home UUID, and I'm going to just say assign equals d.id, like that. I don't see why we couldn't just call it there. I don't know if we really have to assign it to a variable, but I'm going to do that anyway. I'll just have it here. And so we need it for this one, and we need it for this one, and we need it for this one, right? Okay, so those are now defined. So now let me just see what the next commonality that we need to do for all of them, okay? All right, so the next part is we actually have to make the actual client call to actually send it out. So I'll do it down here because it's going to be identical for all of them, but we'll say client : equals HTTP client curlies RSP error : equals client do, and then we pass in our request. And from here we'll say if error, okay, and then we'll say nil. We did this earlier. We'll say return dialog from error. It's really nice that it autocompletes because if it didn't, I'd have a lot of troubles here. We'll say we'll defer and wait on the body and then close it. Okay, and so this is something that we need to do for all of them. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this right after the, this one said headers. Oh, sorry, you know what? This is supposed to come after the headers, sorry. Okay, and we'll go here and we'll paste it in and we'll copy this and we will paste it in here and we will copy this, making sure it's under the headers each time. Good, good. Okay, great. So now it's in all 4 places, but you can see this is kind of repetitive and there should be some way to refactor this, but I'm not going to even try because I have it in a working state that I know that works, and it is more work to do it this way, but I think it's just going to be easier for all of us here. So this is where it starts to kind of vary because we have different payloads that are going to get accepted and changed. So for the create, we'll tackle that one first. Okay. And we'll take a look at the create. So we need to pass in a payload. So on create, it needs to pass in a message body, right? So coming back to our diagram here, if you remember the request one, we need to send a payload for a post, and it needs the message body to contain all the details there, right? So coming back over to here in our create, we need to pass in, this actually option allows us to pass in a payload. And so that's what we're going to do here. So above it, we are going to make a new payload after config, I guess, and we'll say payload colon equals, and we'll make a map, and it'll be a string, and I guess it returns an interface or uses an interface or does something with an interface. And we'll go here and we'll define all the things we need. So we need a name, we need a description, we need a domain name, we need a town, we need a content version. And we're going to say d get, and then we'll say name in here, and then we'll cast it as a string. That's what that's doing there. I believe that's casting. It just forces it to be the type that you want it to be, just in case it isn't. We'll do this for description as well. Description. And we'll say string. And we'll say d get domain name. String d get town string. We'll say d get content version string. Okay, and so that's our payload. We need to get it into a format that it wants to be in, if that makes sense. So what we're going to need to do here is we are going to convert this payload into bytes, because we'll just have to serialize it, so to speak. And so there is a JSON function that we can use called Marshall, and it'll be payload. It's kind of like stringify in a sense, like how you do that in JavaScript, I suppose. And it could return an error, so we'll have to do error handling for that, and we'll just have to do assignment as per usual. If error nil. I don't think I'd ever want a job writing Golang every day, because I'm not a huge fan of this language. Now Rust, I could do Rust all day. Rust is complex like this, but it's more logical, at least for me. But you know, I'm not saying, I don't think I'd want to be a Golang programmer, but it is pretty fast language. So let's say new buffer, and I've tried to learn it 10 times at least, and I only use it when I need to. So you know, don't worry about remembering this stuff. Just remember that you've got some experience and you have confidence. So this will, you know, probably work as expected. So that is for that payload. So I'm just kind of looking at what else we need to do for this one. So after we put in the payload in here, we're going to close the body. We should get a response here. So here it's returning the response. We want to do something with that response. So we're going to need to parse it, because it's going to, remember how the payload comes in as raw data. So over here, this is actually raw data. And of course, in other languages, like in Sinatra, we did JSON.parse. We need to do the JSON.parse of Golang, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do here is do that. So we'll say var response data, and I'm going to say map and string and interface. We're creating a data structure for it to go in, I believe. So we'll just say parse JSON, response JSON. Okay. And so we'll say if error JSON new decoder. So we'll use the decoder. I remember I had to look this up, and I said, you know, how to parse JSON, response JSON in Golang. That's probably where I got this code from. You know, it would have been something like this. I remember it was on Stack Overflow where I got this. See how they're doing a JSON on Marshall. So there's a few different ways to do it, but anyway, we're using the new decoder for whatever reason. And so we'll say response body. Remember, the body is the one that contains that raw JSON data, and then we want to decode it. And so we will say response, because we made a variable here. Now we're referencing it, its address, I believe, and that way this will decode it into that variable. So we're passing in to say, take this data and put it into that variable. And if it has an error, then we were going to need to check for that. We'll say if it does, we'll do dialog from error. And I don't think it's from error, it's just from ERR. So hopefully I haven't been making that mistake in other places. I have. It auto-completed for that. Let me see, from, it does. It auto-completes for that, so that's a bit confusing, but I can go back and just make sure that is consistent here. Sometimes auto-completion can lead you astray, so I'm just double checking all these. I know it's a lot of code, but yeah, this is programming. The more exposure, again, the better it is for you. But yeah, I can't hold it all in my head, but you know, I for the most part know generally where I am, and it's interesting programming. So we are on our create action still here, yes, okay, and so we want to parse that JSON, and that's what that does here. And that's totally fine. So I guess the question is, what else needs to parse JSON? Probably all the functions need to do that. Let me double check. So does the read need to do that? Yes, it does. But interestingly, it only parses it inside the OK, which is fine. Does the update need to do it? The update doesn't. I mean, it could if it wanted to, but we don't, for whatever reason. And then in the delete, we don't. So really, we only need to parse JSON for the update and the read. Interesting. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll at least copy this for the read, because we know we're going to use this again for the read. And we'll place it here. Okay. And we'll go back to our create action. We could parse on all of them, but I don't. So, and less code, less problems, I think. So the idea is that we also have a response, and so we want to handle the response status. Remember in our code, we were setting all those status codes. So if we go over to the, if you remember the Ruby code that we wrote, or that you copied, in the, where is it? Here, in the server. We have all these status codes, right? These ones here. And so we want to check. Now, normally a status 200 is an okay. That's what you want, is the status 200. So that's generally what we're looking for here. So what we'll do is say if response had a status code not equal to HTTP server status okay. Okay. If it didn't have that, then raise an error. So we'll just say here status okay equals 200 response, HTTP response code. That's because that's what it is. Status okay. And so if we didn't get that, then we want to raise an error, and we want to print that out so that we know why it didn't have that. If in any other case, we don't need to print it out, but then we'll know what the problem is, because all those errors that we were raising earlier, remember these, all these errors? We want to see those errors if they occur, and so that is what this line is going to do. So if it's not a 200, it must be bad, so therefore print it out so we can see what it is. And so we'll have to do format, error F, and then we'll have a message here. So this will be failed to create house resource. And then we'll go here and say we'll need a status code. So we'll say status code, and I'll do %D. This has to do with like formatting. I'm not going to get into how this works. It's too complicated to explain, but just follow along here and you'll be okay. So we'll print out the status code, the actual status. I want the body here, not necessarily the status. Yeah, status in the body. I mean, I guess this one we'll just say it's okay, or maybe we'll say something else, but we'll do all three of these here. And then we need to actually pass in the variables. We'll say response, status, code, response, status, and then we have the response data. So those are the three things that we want to print out. I'm pretty sure that we do that for everything. So I'm just going to double check here. Kinda. I mean, for the read, it's a little bit more complex, but we'll copy this. The read's going to be more intense. Let's go down here and paste this in here. And I believe that the update will probably have that. It does. Good. But this is going to be on an update. So before we move forward, this is on the read. So we'll just say fail to read. I have house, but I meant to say home. Let's make sure this language is consistent. Oops. Home. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but, you know, best we can do for what we can here. And I'll go down here and we'll do this here. Okay. And we're going to want one for delete as well. So yeah, and they all have them, so that's good. So now what we'll do, and we're trying to focus on the crate and then bring over code anytime we need it. So we'll go all the way back up to the crate, which is here. And just trying to see here. So the other thing we need to do is we need to set a value of the ID. So whenever you have a resource for Terraform, it always wants you to at least return the ID and set it. So that's what we'll need to do here. So for the create, down at the bottom, we're going to have to go here and say, I'm going to say house. I keep trying to type house. Home UUID. And I want to gather this from the response data. Now we do, I think, assign that up here. So I'm not sure if that would cause a conflict. Didn't we assign it up here somewhere, the home ID? No, not in this one because it doesn't have it. That's fine. And so here we would say response data, and we'll say UUID, and we'll cast it to a string. Make sure that it is a string, no matter what format it's in. And then we'll say set ID, home UUID. By the way, we're going to jump back and forth between this code and the state file when it actually does start working. But anyway, that's what we want here. I'm going to go all the way to the top, see if there's anything missing. Nope, that's the crate. Yeah, I know, a lot of code, right? We'll go into the read. And so the read, we've done a lot of the work for it indirectly by copying and pasting a lot of the stuff. It needs to have the home ID, which it does over here. So that is good. Where it varies is the response codes. So down below here, we're actually going to turn this one into an else if. And just take that message out here. And we'll start with an if here. And it will say if it actually is okay. Because if it is okay, we actually want to read the data and return that back. So what we'll need to do is parse some JSON. Now, we don't actually parse JSON in all cases. So I think this is where we're going to just put this here because we don't parse JSON in all cases. It's only if we get an okay back, right? And so what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and set some values. We did that for the ID. Now we're actually going to set all these values here. And D is the data resource for our Terraform resource. So we want one for name. So I'm going to say response, data, and then we'll say name. And we're going to cast that as a string. And the reason we don't set these in the first one is I think it's just because, why don't we set them in the first one? I guess because they get initially set through when we configure it earlier, like when it actually gets configured in the main TF, it probably gets internally set somewhere. But we'll go back over here and sorry, so we have the name, we have the response data and the name here and the string. And I'm going to go here and we're going to set a description. Okay, so we need one for that. Description. I always think I'm spelling that wrong, so I'm going to double do that. And we'll say domain name. I'm also watching the time because we have an office hours coming up. Well, at least for me in 15 minutes, not for you. You're just watching this video. But I want to make sure I don't miss it. Okay, and this is going to be a float 64, even though it's not a float. I'm not sure why we're casting it as a float. It's kind of weird that we're casting it as a float, but that's what my code shows and it works. So, I mean, this should be like an int64, if that's even a thing. I'm going to do it and see what happens. Because it's an integer, we don't actually want a float. And I'm noticing my old code here. See? It says float. But it worked. Just the wrong one though. So, hopefully me making an int is not going to cause any issues. So here we are setting those values as we pull it back. We'll have to go here and there's a case where we might have a status not found, because what could happen is, like, let's say you're doing a read and someone's deleted it, like manual configuration off the server. That's where you have configuration drift. And so in this case, you have to say, oh, the state is not there. So we'll set the ID, which is basically saying that it's not there. Okay, so we'll do that and set the ID there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We're going to go down over to our update and do this one. So this one is similar to the create. It's going to need this payload in the front. So this thing here, it's going to want this thing. Very similar. I'm not sure why I called it updated attributes, but we're going to go copy this like this. But there's a few things that are different, and that is that this one here has less going on with it. So if I paste this in here, whoops. When you do an update, you're not allowed to do you're not allowed to change the domain, you're not allowed to change the town, but you can change these three values. So that's all that should be going there. Name, description. It's weird because in mine, again, this is probably a mistake, but it tries to change the domain name, but you should not be able to change the domain name because, well, I'm just thinking about this, because if you have your infrastructure, unless it tears down the actual CloudFront instance, should it update the domain name? I don't know. Because really, once it's deployed, if you tore it down again, the resource would get deleted with the... No, I don't think so. I don't think we should have a means to change the domain name. I think it should just stay the same. And so my old code is just wrong, and that's fine. So all the same headers and stuff are set the same. I think everything else is pretty much the same. But we do need to set the values down below here. So in this one, dset name. And this is where we want to get our payload information. So let me just double check here. We called it payload bytes up here. But actually, we want to return a response, don't we? Yeah, where is that? No, you know what? We'll just return, we have them defined here, the payload. We'll just return the payload values down here. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll go down here and we'll just say payload. Because that, like, if it worked, like we could download and get back from the server, because the server could change the, because it goes out to the server, saves the values, and it could return back the same stuff, but that's not what it does. And we're just going to be a bit cheaty here and just take this and then apply it directly back here and update it. So I'm going to say payload here, and then I'm just going to say name. Let's make sure that is correct. Yes, it is. Good. And then we'll do for description. And we'll do that for content version. Now, did we set this also as an N64? Well, that should be an N64, shouldn't it? Should it not? Because it's not a number. I'm really surprised that I made these mistakes and they didn't cause any issues before. I mean, that one gets set as N64. And I mean, this one's a string. I'm just going to do this. I hope this doesn't break anything, but I'm going to do that. And so hopefully that resolves our issues there. I believe there's an N64. If there's a float, they just usually change it to int. And so we'll go down to our, not our read, but our update. And so these look pretty good. And I guess our next one is our delete. So our update is done. So that was pretty easy. Let's take a look at our delete. Is there anything interesting that we need to do for our delete? The only thing we need to do for delete is set, if it's successful, set the ID here. So like, unless there's an error here, I mean, we could be explicit and say, if we got a 200, we can do it. But we can just assume that a status 200 must have occurred because otherwise it'd be like else, right? You'd be like, if else this, right? We could do that. But it's kind of already implied that it's successful. It's just a means to which you like to code. And I'd rather do it this way. I think it's cleaner. So that's what I kind of prefer. Because this return will stop the execution here. So, you know, it's up to you how you want to do it. But this looks like we have all this stuff implemented. The question is, will it work? Because we wrote a lot of code, and you saw how many mistakes I made in the last one. So I wouldn't be surprised if it complains. But what I'll do is I'll type in clear, and we will try this out here. Bin build provider, and we have a few errors. Nothing super bad so far. 166. What's its problem here? I don't know. Let me double check on my other one. This is, and I mean, we copy and pasted this, so it's going to be an error for every single one. So, I mean, if that's all there is, that's going to be great. I'll be really happy with that. I'm just trying to find the error. Give me 2 seconds. You know what it is? It's missing the nil here. That's what it is. So there's that one. It's probably the same or similar. It says 67 missing. Well, I think it's because that was the error. But we'll probably have to go to each of those. So I'm going to go here and say new decoder. I'm just searching for it for the next instance. So this one's missing the nil. This one's not missing the nil, surprisingly. So I don't know why I messed it up in one place but not others. It's saying undefined JSON. It's because we didn't include this in our libraries at the top. So go all the way to the top. Here, I hope it's just called JSON. It is called encoding JSON. So we say encoding JSON. Pretty good. We'll hit this again. There's fewer errors now. It's now saying undefined HTTP. That's because we need to include that as well. There's a package for that called net HTTP. So we'll save that. We'll hit up. And we have a few more errors. Undefined diag front error. Front error? Is that what it's supposed to be called? That doesn't look right to me. 145. From error. From error. Let's see if we got any more fronts here. Oh, wow, I can't even see these errors, can I? So we'll get rid of those two there. We'll type this again. Getting better, line 149. We'll go here. It's saying doesn't know what bytes is over here. Probably because it's supposed to be payload bytes. Or no, is it? Maybe it's supposed to be a library. Yeah, bytes is a library. We'll go here. We'll run this again. Getting better, line 152. Error type is not an expression. Error type is not an expression. It's talking about this. Maybe it's supposed to be errors or it's supposed to be ERR. So I'm going to look for this one here. Yeah, this is supposed to be ERR. Right, so that's fine. I'm going to just search error for this a few more. I probably did this more than one place. Yeah, that's supposed to be ERR. This one's supposed to be ERR. Okay, let's try this again. Run it again. Getting better. Line 134. Response data is not defined. 227. Response data is this over here. Well, it's right above there. I don't know what you're talking about. It's defined within within this. So we need this to be on the outside. Otherwise, it's not going to know what this is. And we're going to decode it from the interior, I suppose. Yeah, and let's see how that does. That's better. Line 249. Again, not a Go programmer, but not too hard for me to figure these out. Declared but not used. It's saying this isn't being used. What do you mean it's not being? Oh, you know what? We didn't pass it in here. Well, that's a problem because we definitely want to pass that through. So that's one of them. Good. Cannot use payload bytes as IO reader argument line 255. So it's because we have to do a little bit on here. We have to do bytes, new buffer. I guess we're making a buffer there. We'll do that. That would be the same for the update as the create. So we'll go up to the, did we do that for our create action as well? We didn't. I imagine we're supposed to. Yeah, we'll just do that there as well. I imagine we're supposed to for both. Bytes, new buffer. Okay. Good. And anyway, I got to do office hours, so I'll be back here in a bit, okay? All right, I'm back. I just did an office hours, so let's get back in the swing of things here. We were doing something. I don't remember. Something in the main go. Oh, right. We were trying to work through our issues here when it came to building. So I'm going to run the build again. We're just going to keep tackling it here. So the next one is 175. We'll make our way over to lines 175. And it's saying cannot use response data, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't like something. So as byte value and argument bytes new buffer. So I'm just going to compare this here to my other one to try to figure out what it is that I've done wrong. And oh, you know what it is? I mean, we were supposed to do this, but not here. I was supposed to do that up in here, which we did in this payload on the create and also on the update, which was supposed to be in the update here. So this is just mucked up code. I think I accidentally just put this in. This is me making a mistake. But I did get to eat something on my break here, so maybe I'll do a better job. And okay, so that looks good to me. And we'll hit enter. So that error is now gone. We now have one on 257, 257. We'll jump over to here. And we'll say error. And we'll run this 274. And so this is now on line 274. Undefined response data doesn't know what it is. That's because for this one, we have payload bytes. Do we even need a response data for this one? This is update. Let me just double check here. For the update, no, I don't have a response for that one because we don't care about that in here. So we'll just take that out as such. Okay, so that is the update. And that might just been our fault for doing sloppy copy paste here. So this one doesn't have a response data either, so we'll take that out. Because that's just going to error out later. I'm going to just double check the read here. For the read, update, create, read. I mean, this one definitely has a response data. And this one definitely has a response data. So yeah, I think we're fine here now. Let's go try this again. And we have a build. Amazing. So we have implemented everything, I think. Everything is implemented that we want to be implemented. And I realized that we did a bunch, and it's still really confusing to look at, but that's okay. I think when we start looking at the Terraform state file, it will start to make sense. But now the question is, does it actually work? So this should be communicating to our Sinatra server, which is running over here on this other tab. Apparently I'm covering it, but it's this tab over here for localhost 4567. Okay, so I can go back here. I'm gonna make my tab nice and tiny, get out of the way. And so we're running this here down below. And we want to see if this will actually provision something. So we're going to go and do terraform init. And we do have an error, and it's still this darn same error, I think. Failed to query available provider packages. This was something I actually got a lot before. And here it's saying, could not retrieve a list of available versions, does not have a provider name, registry, Terraform, IO, HashiCorp, TerraTown. It has to be, well, this is TerraTown. It's supposed to be TerraTowns. So maybe that's our issue here. TerraTown, TerraTowns. It would have been interesting to see if we could have actually built without all that other stuff, but it says TerraTowns here. There's nothing called Terratown. Terratown. So Terraform RC file. That looks okay. But why is it Terratown? There's supposed to be an S on there. So that's indicating to me that there's something around there that's the issue. So just give me a moment to try to figure it out, okay? Well, I didn't solve it yet, but one other thing is that maybe this should be called Terratowns here. I don't think that's our issue, but I would still like to fix that because I don't like that it's called Terratown and not Terratowns. Oh, this one's actually called Terratown, so maybe that actually is our issue, is that spelling mistake. That'd be a nice, easy fix. But it doesn't seem like our Go code is a problem, so we'll go Terraform. Look at that. That is such a small thing to solve there. I'm surprised we found it. It does say here, incomplete lock file information for providers. Due to the lock customized provider installation methods, Terraform was forced to calculate the file checksum locally. So that's not exactly how we would like to do it, but that's fine. As long as it works, we're okay. So now let's do a Terraform plan and see what we get. So we have Terraform plan running here, and it is showing us our resource. So we just made a custom resource, and it's showing what it's going to change. Now remember that our mock server is not real, so it will not work exactly correct, but we can play a little bit around before trying it on the real Terratowns. But what we'll do here is we will attempt to do a Terraform apply, and we'll say yes, and we will hit enter, and we got some errors. Well, it wasn't going to be that easy, was it? So here it says, with Terratowns home.home on main TF line 40, the plugin encountered an error. gRPC provider, the plugin logs may contain more details. And it says panic interface conversion interface is nil, not string. I remember getting this one time too. And it's saying the issue is on line 140. It's not being very descriptive in terms of the problem, but you can see that it's happening in the house create action. I want to go over to Sinatra. Did it show that it hit anything? No. But the issue is happening on line 140. So what I'm going to do is go over to here into our main Go file and go to line 140. I know it's very cryptic, but that's just how it is. It's saying it's having a problem here. And you know what? There was a spelling mistake. So there we go. We'll fix that. This is my reminder to tell you again, if you're struggling to work through this, you can copy and paste the code and get to the end. But you know, if you want to work through it, I appreciate people do that and try to work harder. So now we're going to run it again. Well, I guess I didn't really solve it. I need to do the Terraform build, which will delete a bunch of files. And then we need to do a Terraform init. And then we'll do Terraform apply. Just going to zoom in a bit here. And we'll say yes. And now we have a different problem, or maybe the same problem, I don't know. And here now the error is on line 142. This is in the create action, so it's still happening. Do I have another spelling mistake? I mean, we did change this from int to float. Maybe there is no such thing as an int64. Here it says, is int not int64? Okay, well, if it is, let's just leave it as int because I don't care. I mean, we're trying to cast it, right? So I'm going to say int. And I know in my cloud programming course, I definitely know what it is, and I can sound like I'm smart in that, but I don't know what it is here. I'll just search for int64 here. Change this to int. But let's see if that resolves our issue. So I'm going to build again. Just bump this up a bit. We'll build again. And we're going to do tf init and then tf apply. Say yes. Getting better. We still have some errors. Here it's saying that invalid character, looking at that. I think that's when we do the code block. So for some reason, it's not liking our code block. This one here, which I don't understand why not. Invalid character looking for beginning on line 40. Receiving end of file loop stop here. Okay, I noticed that it's not highlighting correctly here either though. So if I indent this, does that fix it? If I indent this, does that fix it? Does it not like my here doc? Let's just go here and see what happens. I mean, I want the here doc to work because I don't want to write long lines like that. No, so I don't think it's related to that issue there. So I'm going to go put that back because I don't think that's the issue. But it clearly doesn't like something. So let me just investigate, okay? All right, it was very cryptic, so I actually asked ChatGPT here, which is still generating out, and suggesting that there's an issue parsing JSON. And I would have never guessed that based on this error, but it does kind of make sense because if you get back something that is not JSON and HTML, it'd probably start with this character, and you wouldn't be able to parse it. So that does make sense. But let's go over to Sinatra, and it doesn't show anything over here. So that's kind of interesting. But if we go over, again, maybe they're sending us on a wild goose chase here, but, and we do have log modes on. Something that might be interesting is, did any of our logging actually occur? So I'm just making it really small to see if I can see any of our API calls getting called here. And I'm just carefully looking at the full log history under the Terraform tab to see what I can figure out. But there's nothing here. There's nothing that is indicating to me because it's not logging anything from our app from this. So I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to have to keep trying here, okay? All right, I thought maybe ours wasn't logging, but it actually is logging house create here. So I did not notice that here before, but that's our logging. And then the next line below it, saying response contains error diagnostic. So I guess that's probably where our issue is coming from. So definitely around here, there is an issue. And it's not really clear exactly where, unless it's actually pushing an error on and it's returning it, which could be from here. And we do have our endpoint here. It would be useful if we could log out that there. I'm not sure if we can just create an endpoint by saying like endpoint or URL. Again, not super good at Go, but we'll go ahead and try to make a variable. I've been trying to avoid doing that. And I'm just going to go here and see if I can do this. Because maybe there's something wrong with our endpoint, right? And I'll just say URL. And then we'll say log print URL. We'll say log print URL. We could probably also just do this, like %s URL. I think we'd have to do formatting for that though. It's like some fancy way to format. It's like FMT. I don't know. I think maybe I'll just do this. Keep it simple. Nothing crazy for logging here. But I'll see if that will build. Hopefully I didn't introduce a new problem. That built fine, good. Terraform init, Terraform apply. And I'm going to say yes. And I'm looking for our URL. So I'm just checking, is this URL correct? So we have localhost 4567 u, then this address /homes. And you know what the problem is? It's supposed to be /API homes. If we were to just hit homes, it's going to hit the, well, it's going to hit nothing. But in the real app, it's going to go to the wrong place. So that's our problem here. And I guess we can keep printing this out. That's kind of a good idea. So I'm going to copy that. We'll go down to our next one, which is here. And I'll paste this in here. And I'll actually grab this one instead. And we will do this. And say var. I'll just bump this up a bit so I can see colon equals URL. Same thing here. We'll do URL, and I'll copy this. Being very careful to copy it. Paste that in here. So that looks fine. And so we'll put that one in there as well. So, you know, this is just a bit of a cleanup to be able to, well, I wanted to print it out as well. And I haven't been copying that code. So we'll go back to the top here for wherever that was, where we had, yeah, the log here. I just want to grab this log. We'll go to the next one. I meant to paste that there. Where are you? Here. We'll paste that in here. And we'll paste that in here. Okay, so now we just have these refactored endpoints, and hopefully we're not introducing a new problem. But yeah, it was that API part, which still we haven't fixed it for all of them. So we'll do API here for delete, API for the update, API for the read, and then API for there. Okay, and we'll build again. And now I introduce a new error, so 199. It's because we don't need var in front of it when we do that, because it'll do both the assignments, eh? Just making sure I didn't introduce that mistake anywhere else. Go ahead and save. We'll hit up. There we go. Okay, and so we'll do tf init, tf apply auto approve, and well, we're getting something invalid character looking like that, so we're getting something similar. This one is doing API homes now, so I guess that is better. Why are we still having problems is the question. I want to look at our endpoints here, double check what they are. So just go ahead and copy this and paste this as a comparison. Oh, it's my fault because look, I'm doing homes is actually fine where it was. We got it wrong. And the thing is that we don't need to change the URL. We can leave this as this. I know the problem is it's our API endpoint. So our endpoint's supposed to point at API, right? So we'll go here, take that out. We'll go here, take that out. Okay. I wasn't really paying attention closely, I guess. We'll go to main TF, and then this is supposed to say in here, this is supposed to go to / API. And that should resolve our issues. I'm going to double check here. Yeah, it does have / there, so that's good. I'm going to just do Terraform. Well, we have to build it again because I mucked with it. And then we'll do tf init, tf apply auto approve. And it says one resource change, so it actually worked. So it actually created the resource, but it didn't really because it's going to the mock API. So it went here, returned our UUID. Okay. And it is holding that state, so we should be able to keep mocking it, right? But I wonder if we can test all the endpoints here, if that's even possible. I'm going to make a change. Well, before we do that, let's take a look at the state file. So in our state file, and we'll see if there's any sensitive data in there because this is a good security lesson to be learned. So notice here it says sensitive attributes, which is totally fine. This is the Terra home. And it's not storing in here, so I guess that's fine. Like I thought that when we set that endpoint URL that or the token, that it might show up in here. It doesn't. I guess it just depends on the design of your token. It must be stored somewhere else, which is totally fine. But notice here that these are the attributes that we defined, the schema for the resource. So it goes here and it's saying that this is, here we have our resources. It's a Terra Towns home, and it's pointing to the provider. And then we have our attributes: description, domain name, ID, name, town, content version. And the most important thing is the ID, which, does it show the ID here? It does right here. And so basically everything revolves around this ID, and that's all really that's the thing that the Terraform provider really cares about, is that ID, because that's what it's going to use to keep the mapping in place, so to speak. But anyway, so now that we've been able to do an apply, let's try to make a superficial change and do that. So what I'm going to do is go over to our main TF, and I want to make some kind of change. I'm going to say how to play Arcanum in 2023. So I've made some superficial change. I'm going to hit up and see if it notices that change. And we get an error. So it's a good thing we're testing out all these endpoints. And the issue is probably with show, because when you do an apply, it actually does, it calls out to the read action before it does anything else. And it is complaining about something here. I don't want the create resource. I'm just going to take out, this is house resource. I still comment that wrong. I meant to call it home resource, but whatever, it's fine. And it's not, we're not seeing any of our other errors here. Yeah, it is doing the read resource here, but it didn't throw any errors here. Like it didn't throw, sorry, our prints. I don't know why. But it's complaining on line 228. That's where this issue is. So I'm going to go over to our main Go, and we'll go to line 228. And it's having a problem with this line. It's always the darn content version. It's always giving us trouble, eh? And this is in the show. If the response is okay, then do a set. Is it supposed to do that for a read? Because a read action, all it's supposed to do is return data. So down here, we have a status code, and it's setting the values. Otherwise, it goes null. This seems like this is supposed to be for update. I think I have this backwards. That would totally make sense, too. No, apparently I have it in the read. Okay. If the stat, oh, sorry, yeah, it's because I'm thinking of the server, what the server would do. Yeah, local would do this. This makes sense. Never mind. And the problem is here is that the syntax is wrong. It's supposed to be on the outside here, but it doesn't throw an error. So that's the problem. I think it's supposed to be like this. Or is it? No. Hold on here. Good question. What is the problem? No, it's supposed to be on the inside. All right, just give me a moment to figure it out, okay? And our issue here is it's saying interface conversion interface is float64 and not int. So that's the error we're having. And I thought like we're trying to cast it here to an int, right? So what's going on, right? Like, why can't I do that? And I mean, in the other one, I have float64 for everything. And I mean, I guess we could do that, but it's supposed to be an int. So, you know, do I still have any? You know what? I just want it to work. And so I'm going to change it to float64 because it was working before as a float64. But in practice, that number is just supposed to be, oops, it's supposed to be an int. So whatever. At this point, I just want it to work. So we'll go here. And this is going to tear everything down. So I'll have to stop this because this is actually storing state, like that superficial global state. And we'll do Terraform init. So yeah, if we muck this up, we'll have to stop and start the Terraform server just to clear out that state. So I want to rebuild this. So we'll go here. And maybe it'll just work with float64, no problem, and then I don't have to have any problems. So I'm gonna go back here and take out this exclamation mark. We'll hit enter. And now I have a different error because it's saying failed to read the home resource because we already have a state file, right? And so we just need to delete out this old state file because it's confused. Okay. And we'll say Terraform Terraform apply auto approve, or we'll just say apply and see what happens. No problems here. Yes. Oh boy, this one's hard. Interface conversion is int not float64. Yeah, this one's a little bit tricky because in my old code, there was no problem. You know what? In one place I make it an int, in another place I don't make it. That's interesting. Okay, so we're gonna make it wants it to be an int here, so I'm gonna make it an int. Okay, and then for the read, it wants it to be something else. I'm gonna check here. And then in the read, are we in the read? No, we're not in the read. Sorry, in the create, here, it wants this to be an int, okay? And then in here in the read, it wants it to be a float64. Why? I don't know why. Maybe it's just the way the response comes back and it's being interpreted as that. I don't know. But I don't want to goof around all day and try to make this perfect. And then in the update, it's an int. That's what my code says. So if that's what my code says, then I'm going to go with that. And if it works, it works, and I'll be happy, okay? So we'll go here and we'll hit up. I'm going to go ahead and delete out the state file because I don't trust it anymore. Not that there's anything in it. And I'm going to stop Sinatra, start it back up again like this. And we will now do a Terraform init. And we'll do a Terraform apply. We'll say yes. And it created it this time. So this resource has been created. We can go over to Sinatra and see it. We want to attempt to make a change. So I'll do that. We'll go back over here. We'll type apply. And notice that it notices the text description changes. That's great. We're going to type in yes. So we'll type in yes. Fingers crossed that this works. Please work. And it did. It says added change resource. Yeah, I don't see an error. It's just because we get all this text. So if we go to our Terraform state file, we can see that we should have the updated one here. Interesting, the name is the same as that. So there must be a bug in our main Go code. There has to be. I must have repeated something somewhere. Yeah, right here. Right away I can tell there's a problem. It's a good thing I'm double checking that, but like that wouldn't have been easy to notice. What I'm gonna do is just take that out again and I'm gonna try to have it change. Okay. Well, we have to rebuild again, so technically I'll just stop this. Okay. And I'll go back here and we'll build again and we'll delete out our state files here. Okay. And we will try this again. So we'll say tf init and then we will say tf apply. Yes. And here we have main tf line 40. Well, what's the problem now? It was fine, but oh, you know, the server's not running. Okay, so we'll go here. Yeah, it'll say that one that's not running. And we'll try this again. We'll say yes. It will create it. That's good. We will check our state file. Our state file looks normal. The name is the name. The description is the description. Everything is what we want it to be. We'll go here and add an exclamation mark. And when it does the apply, it's going to do a show and an update in both those actions. So both those will be checked. We do that, so I'm going to apply. We'll say yes. It updated. I want to make sure that's changed. It's good. The fields are what we expect them to be. Now let's do a destroy. So we'll say Terraform destroy, and we'll say yes. And now it's empty. So it looks like everything is working. Is there edge cases? I don't know. Is there things that we haven't considered? I don't know. It's very hard to write a good Terraform provider. It's very impressive that we were able to do this, especially with the lack of like expert Go knowledge. But I think it's really cool. I want to make this a hard stop here because we've done a lot. And the next thing will be using TerraTown's, the provider against the real TerraTown's endpoint, if that makes sense. So I think that's our next step. But in order to do that, we're going to have our TerraTown's account. So I'll see you in the next video, okay? And I'm just going to save my code. Well, I say in the next video, but we really should finish up whatever we're doing here. Notice it's going to keep putting the lock file in here, so just understand that's going to be a bit of a mess, but that's okay. So this is branch 47. So we're going to say here, finish implementation of Terraform provider. Okay, I think we're basically done with this branch now, which would be nice. And I'm going to go back over to here, and we're going to go, this is another student's that we're working on in office hours here. I'm going to make my way over to my repo. We're going to go ahead and make our pull request. We're going to create a new pull request. We're going to drop down main. We're going to go all the way to the bottom to 47. We're going to create this pull request. And it says it can't automatically merge, probably because I forgot to pull main. Okay, so we'll go over here. This is actually what we did in office hours, was me solving some Git issues. But if we go over to Git, is main ahead? And we have this here. That's 230, that's fine. So I'm not sure why it's complaining, but what I'll do, did we push this? Oh, we just didn't push, that's probably why. Okay, so we'll go back here. I'm gonna give this a refresh. Still a problem? Really? You sure? You sure? We'll go down here. Oh, dang. Okay, I'm gonna do a git merge main because we probably didn't pull merge to this resolve the lock files here. It doesn't matter what we do for this because the lock file doesn't matter. This matters definitely. I was really hoping we wouldn't have any kind of this to deal with, but I think this is pretty easy. The bottom one is the old one, so we'll take that out, and we'll take this. We'll take this bottom one out, and we will take this. We'll take out the bottom one, and we'll take out this. We'll take out the bottom one here. Oh, we'll take this. I really wish I didn't have to do this. My fault, though. And there's just one more here. Yeah, we'll take out the bottom one. We'll take this one. I'm just going to search for anything like these patterns. Sometimes it's very easy to leave those in by accident. So I'm just searching down below. It's down below. I'm searching, if you're wondering, because I'm using Vim. But that should resolve our issue there. So I'm going to say git add all, git commit. It's going to open the commit in this tab. All I got to do is close the tab to finish the merge. I'm going to do git push. And now I'll go back here and resolve this issue. And we'll say create pull request. We'll create it. And I'll go here. And it shouldn't have an issue now. We'll merge it. We'll squash it. We'll make our way back. There's some like song. I was just thinking like, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm getting off track here. We will go over to main and we'll say git checkout main. Git pull. And then what I want to do here is I want to bring in 230. So this is going to be 240. So git tag 2.4.0. I'm going to check my graph, make sure it's in the right location. And this is a little bit messy. It's not that bad, but you can see I had to do a little bit of funny stuff here. But 2.4 is up here. I'm going to do git push tags. And we are done. And so yeah, I guess the next one I'll have to do the TerraTown stuff and we'll get set up, okay? Ciao. I'm stopping my workspace too. Yeah.